Okay, just wanted to show you some of the results from our drone flight from this afternoon. So to give you an example of what we, the finished product that we came up with, what we're looking at here, this is a piece of software called QGIS. It's open source GIS software and it works really well. And you can see that I've loaded in a typical satellite photo from Google Earth. And so this is something that you're very familiar with, and you can see that we're looking at Hancock. If you zoom in, you can see, once you zoom in, the resolution is not very good. Here you can kind of see decent resolution, but if you zoom in on the pavilion or whatever, it gets pretty gnarly pretty quick, right? And so one of the advantages of the high resolution aerial photography that we did was it's much higher resolution. So, and also it's georeferenced. So here's the image that we were able to create with today's overflight. And so now if we can zoom in, you can see it's much better resolution. You can see all the cars that are parked there today. You can see the pavilion. You can see sharper edges on the pavilion. You can see the solar panels. You can even probably, if you remember what people were wearing, you could figure out, here's all of us that we are standing around waiting for the drone to fly over. You could probably almost tell who that is. And so if you, look at the greenhouses and things, and again, if I turn that off, that's the resolution that you get from Google Earth, right? And so it's just a lot crisper. But of course, again, the advantage is that you can do this as often as you want to, and so you can look at short-term changes. Now, a couple things I'd like to point out. I mentioned that if you're like flying over trees and things, those are a little bit more difficult to stitch because they don't have nice straight edges. And so if you kind of look over here, you can see, you can see some smears and things. You can see smears toward the edges there. This is actually pretty good, but that's the kind of thing you can kind of see some funky spacing here. And that's the kind of stuff you get when you have trees in your photo. It's harder to stitch together. And so again, the remedy might be to fly a little bit higher. You lose some of that resolution, but they stitch together better. Although this is not bad at all. Another thing I want to point out, again, if I zoom all the way out, you can see that this is automatically georeferenced. It shows up on the map right where it's supposed to show up. And then, you can do things like take measurements. We mentioned taking measurements. And so, like here's what we call the muscle boat that's parked out there at Hancock. And I know that this boat is about 17 foot long. And so I can use the measure tool and I can set it to feet, which we would rather use SI units, but we know that this boat is 17 feet long. And so if I measure it from bow to stern, you can see, look at the value right there, 17.0004 feet. So it just goes to show you that this image is, properly georeferenced and properly sized, and so that's what makes it very useful. You could look at things like how does the roof on Hancock look and cool stuff like that. Okay, great. So that is the most important result that we got from our overflight today, and this is what I use the drone for most often. But as I mentioned, there are some cool things you can do with it. And so from that same data and the same program, which is called WebODM, we can make it like a 3D version. And so if you look here, here's that same image, but you can see that it's been created in kind of a 3D thing. And you can see the trees are kind of tall and the buildings are kind of tall. And now, if we really wanted a good 3D image, we would need lots more pictures, and they need more overlap. And so this is, when you zoom in, you can see it's kind of hanky. It's not great. And so if the purpose was 3D imaging, then we would have taken, we would have had different parameters. But this really wasn't our purpose. But you can kind of, just kind of cool how you can see it can tell, what things stick off the ground and how far they stick off the ground. And I just think that's really neat. Okay, so that's just some examples of what we can do with the images that we took from the drone. And I'd be glad to show you how we did this in the future. If you got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And I'll talk to you later. See ya.